So there were 3 countries. There was Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia. These are the 3 countries that were under that Partnership Southern Africa program, UNCC-led partnership program. So we managed to develop our own national climate change learning strategy, aiming to strengthen learning and skills development in the sectors that we identified through stakeholder consultations. The sectors, the 5 sectors, there's energy, there's agriculture, there's environment, there's health, and education. So these are the 5 sectors that were identified during the stakeholder consultations. And there are learning actions that were proposed in all the 5 sectors. Even what was said here concerning health, it's also in that learning strategy. Issues to do with education are under the education sector. Issues to do with energy, renewable energy, policy, formulation, and all those things, they are all under the energy sector. So those are the 5 key sectors that we assess. And that's the strategy that we are using in trying to mainstream climate change in the education sector. Climate change in all these 5 key economic sectors. So as a step, what did we do under that project? We were supposed to implement 2 or 3 project actions before it ends. So we chose one of the project actions through the same stakeholder consultations, that of mainstreaming climate change in teacher training. Because we said, yes, we have a new curriculum, competence-based curriculum, which features climate change. But the teachers themselves, they don't know what climate change is. They are not competent enough to produce candidates who know what climate change is and who are able to explain what it is, what are the causes of. So we thought of maybe if we help them, if we teach them, if we train them in their teacher training colleges first, it will make a change. And in that regard, we wanted to come up with a proposal on how we were going to do it, on actually how we are going to do it. And we forwarded that same proposal to the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, which is responsible for all teacher training colleges, all tertiary institutions. With all the resources, with all the actions that were supposed to be taken. And I'm happy that at least the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education showed interest. He said, we are ready to reform the curriculum of the teacher training college program. And right now, as we speak, we're in the process of mobilizing more resources to make sure that we embark on the program of reforming that curriculum. So that was one priority action. Then another priority action. We know that youths, they are our leaders of tomorrow. They are agents of change. So together with one of the youth organizations, Africa Youth Initiative on Climate Change, they approached us and said, we have an idea. We want to build capacity of the youths in Zimbabwe on how to adapt and mitigate to climate change, and also giving them general information on climate change. And we said, that's a noble idea. We can support you. And we support them with resources from the UNCC Land Project. We went out, we visited almost, actually 10 districts across the country. Started with Gokwe South, went to Lupane, went to Wilima, went to go to that Gwanda, Gutu, Mutari, Chimanimani, Mount Darwin, 10 districts across the country. And we built capacity of the youths. We reached out to more than 700 youths. And right now, as we speak, we formed a network of youths that are keen to learn more on climate change. And most of them right now, we include them in our programs. Even when we go somewhere else to do a workshop, we invite them and they are part of the discussions. That was one. But We said, no, we need more resources so that we can reach out, because Zimbabwe, I think it has more than 60 districts. We need to go to that, because we only cover 10. It's only maybe 20% of the districts. We wanted to cover all the other districts, and we are in the process of mobilizing for more resources so that we cover all the remaining districts. That was the second priority action for youths. Then the third priority action, we said, no, we can't have 2 priority actions, one, maybe 3. The third priority action was focusing on building capacity of media practitioners. There was a partnership with Reuters. And I'm happy that at least here there is Nesia Maka, she attended that course, and there's also Shingi Vambe, she did that course. We got, how many were you? 4 media practitioners and 4 government officials to do the course, that online course. And they were given certificates of competence. They were basically trained on how to report climate change effectively. And I'm happy, at least some of you, they managed to benefit from that training. And right now they are reporting effectively. Look at the articles written by Shingi. Look at the articles written by Shnesia. All those colleagues, they benefited from that training under the UNCC Land initiative. So now we are in the process of rolling out this media training. It's also part of the actions that were proposed. So we are rolling out that learning strategy. So maybe in summary, that's what I can say. We have the learning strategy, and I talked about the priority sectors, and I talked about the priority actions that are there, and it's being implemented up to 2030, started last year, up to 2030. And we are mobilizing more resources for you, more resources for us to implement, for us, ourselves and yourselves, that learning strategy. Because we want to build capacity. We want to make sure that at least people are aware of what climate change is. How can we adapt? How can we mitigate? What options are there? The curriculum, how should it be structured? Everything, even the media curriculum, how should it be structured? Yes, that's me. Thank you.
So I'm answering the same question?
No, we'll do the questions, I think, after the whole presentation.
Yeah.
All right. Hi again. So yeah, as I said before, my name is Dino Jovu, and I'm from the Conrad Anna Foundation as a focal person for climate change program. So essentially, what perhaps are we trying to contribute as a foundation to climate change discourses, and especially with regards to the media? Firstly, last year, as it was the COVID year, a lot of people were not interacting with people. So we took it upon ourselves to partner a lot of people that were doing researches or coming up with position papers or writing articles that link climate change, the conversation on climate change, to the media. We produced a book. Unfortunately, we ran out of copies because the book was in such high demand. So if you want to find the book, you can go to www.cas.de on the role of media and climate change discourses in Zimbabwe. It essentially speaks to part of the conversations that are currently happening here. What the book essentially does is that it analyzes how the media can play different roles within the climate change space, and why it is an intrinsic and vital role that should not go unnoticed and should not go unsupported, and also should actually play a more significant role within the space. Secondly, as an organization, mostly our priority is partnering when it comes to research, things that have to do with adaptation to climate change, mitigation of climate change, legislation of climate change issues, by partnering different entities within the space. For instance, our very well-performing partner, the Department of Climate Change, has been doing so much work within the space. And lastly, it is also to mainstream the conversation on climate change and environmental discourses by creating awareness. How we do so, I think for the past 3 years, we've been having what's known as a New Media Summit, where we engage different practitioners within the media space on different and new technologies that are currently being utilized within the media space to report on different things. So it's not only capacitating on the reporting of climate change issues, but reporting in general, so that media practitioners can keep to the pulse and the of trending ways that the media is branching out. Secondly, we also are trying to also make the climate change conversation palatable by trying to tap into different avenues where conversations can occur and where awareness can occur. We're currently funding a podcast called Green Clash Africa. It's currently in production. So that was another way we thought we could participate within the space by maybe creating a podcast, because that's in vogue and people are currently into podcasts. You can drive while listening to a podcast, and you can meaningfully, in a palatable way, engage to trending topics by listening to podcasts, and the people who are presenting can be very relatable and young. Secondly, we also have what is known as the Green Show, where we sponsor a radio show where climate change and environmental issues are discussed. That is a show that happens every week. I think that partnership has been going on for almost 3 years now. We also sponsor another show called The Morning Latte that kind of tackles different issues, including climate change issues, every morning on Wednesday. And we also try to participate in capacity building for practitioners within the space on covering climate change, like the event today, like the same event that also happened in the southern region in Bulawayo. And hopefully next year we can have a training with editors, capacity building for editors, so that the conversation just does not stop here, and the conversation just is not perceived as something that is incredibly scientific and something not accessible for many people. And also in a way that allows people who attended here today to know that they play an intrinsic valuable role in making sure that they do the proper agenda setting and they do proper framing of the climate change conversation in a way that allows climate change discourses to be part and central of national discourses, but not only in a way that they are just aware of it, but in a way that makes it palatable and making it as something trendy, something meaningful, and that allows for people to meaningfully connect to the climate change conversation and understand how it effectively has an influence and impact on their lives and how they can contribute towards a better Zimbabwe. So as a foundation, that's some of the work we're doing, and hopefully in the long term, if people here have different ideas on that they want to collaborate with the organization, feel free to approach me after this. You can take my business card if you've got a concept. Maybe it's something that we can hopefully partner on. Thank you.
Afternoon. I think I've introduced myself before, but just to say the NDC implementation tracking in Zimbabwe is it cannot move without the involvement and participation of media. And I'm glad as well statements from the previous speaker on involving the possibility of involving editors in this conversation. That's very key, because previously we were discussing these issues. Because once we have buy-in, which would be at that level, the issues around climate change will become much more central as we move ahead. Maybe just to emphasize that the Paris Agreement is a binding agreement. We are required to report, specifically when I'm talking to the nationally determined contributions, that it's now a requirement. Maybe from the Climate Change Management Department, they will also share with you to what extent and the consequences that may be there if we do not comply. So every 5 years, we are supposed to report on how the country has moved in terms of reaching its target of reducing emissions. So more revisions of the NDC document itself every 5 years to check on progress, which is where media is key in driving this process of accountability, driving the process of transparency, driving the process of ensuring, for instance, that where there are issues to do with commonality in terms, for example, maybe the issue of waste separation. Maybe some local councils do not do that because you need to separate the waste so that you are able to quantify it. Solid waste, liquid, and sort of. So to what extent are we doing that? Are we reporting that? Are local authorities capacitated enough in terms of technology-wise? Because you also need to weigh. You know, we talk of weight bridges or technologies which or machinery which they use to measure the amount of weight, and the formats which they use to measure. Some of them are different. So before we even talk of tracking, there are some of these issues which are not integrated amongst local authorities, which we need to look at as media as well and say, to what extent are we moving towards this so that we reach the target of reducing emissions in the country by 40%. And also to just emphasize that the IPCC sectors are key. These are the sectors where emission reductions are going to be envisaged. 40% is reachable. It's ambitious, it's achievable. But with media, we can be more effective in ensuring that we monitor transparency, we monitor accountability, we ask the right questions. And also the issue of reading around these documents as well. Because sometimes I know from yesterday, there were lots of policies and strategies which were presented, but it's important for us to also read around them and pick out those key issues that relate to you. It could be a gender lens to climate, or it could be an energy sector, you know. So let's also look at those opportunities where we can transfer our energy towards. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for giving me the floor. Mr. Nemashakwe was talking about reporting of our implementation of our NDCs, or nationally determined contributions. Now, under the ICAT initiative, the Initiative for Climate Change and Transparency, we are looking at specialized work related to specialized studies that will assist us as a country in terms of implementing the NDCs. Now, the implementation of the NDCs has already started, but the reporting to the United Nations will start in December 2024. That's when we'll start reporting what we are doing as a country towards implementation of our NDCs through what are called biannual transparency reports. Biannual meaning that from 2024 going forward, we are going to be reporting after every 2 years as a country in terms of what we are doing towards the implementation of our nationally determined contributions. What we have said we are going to do as a country, how far are we? By December 2024, we should be able to report that. And from then after that, 2026, 2028, until another time frame is chosen. So under the ICAP program, we are providing specialized training to our experts. And in Zimbabwe, we are one of the countries that have the largest number of experts that are certified by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as greenhouse gas inventory experts. Because each and every country is required to have a list of the greenhouse gases that it emits and the amount and the sector and the subsector from where these greenhouse gases are coming. So as a country, we are measuring this, and we've been measuring this over time since the year 2000 until now. So we have all our historical emissions by sector and by subsector, and we have experts who have been trained to do this, to do the calculations of these greenhouse gases. So what we have under the ICAT program is that we now have an inventory, which is an electronic database, which then allows us to manipulate this data. When we manipulate this data, we can then craft our policies and strategies based on the results of the data or the information that we extract from the data that we would have manipulated. So that's why you find that the programs we have in the nationally determined contributions, all of them, they were crafted based on the calculations that we have done. And which sectors can we do best in terms of reducing emissions? We have already calculated that. And over time, our policies and strategies will change. And as they change, our experts will also need further training and further capacitation. So the ICAP program is basically what happens behind the scenes, what you guys do not see. You see us here as the government officials, but there are scientists from our universities that are actually backing us in terms of the rigorous calculations that are required. And these guys are actually certified by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to do these kind of calculations. So it's not only the government working by itself, but it's also working with these scientific institutions in order to feed into policy and strategy as a government and as a country. Then the second thing I'm supposed to talk about here is related to the Conference of Parties, what you know as COP. And this year there's going to be COP26 to be held in Glasgow. It has been, I think you guys have been doing a good job in terms of reporting on COP26. I think it's the most reported COP in my living memory in Zimbabwe, and I think it's because it's tied to our political leader also being part of that particular COP. But anyway, the Conference of Parties, as the word says, it's a conference of parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And currently, 197 countries are parties to the United Nations Framework Convention out of about 200 countries in the world. So we only have quite a few countries that are not party to the United Nations, meaning that 197 countries have ratified the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement as well. So these parties are going to will meet every year to discuss issues related to the implementation of the convention and the implementation of the other agreements related to the convention, which is the Paris Agreement, and also take stock of the progress that we are making in terms of this implementation. So it's basically a meeting of governments and negotiators who are supposed to sit down on the table and negotiate on various agenda items and how they should be implemented. So it's a big meeting which attracts sometimes over 40,000 delegates because the agenda items, on the agenda, there are quite a lot, more than 70 items on the agenda, and you need at least one person to follow on one of the agenda items. And then in terms of participation at the COP, participation is you have to apply to the permanent secretary for environment for you to be part of the delegation. Like I said, it's a meeting of governments, and once you go there and you get the accreditation that is required, you are there representing your government. You are no longer just a media organization. So you are there representing the interests of Zimbabwe and the rest of Zimbabwe, and you are also supposed to be in sync with the Zimbabwe country position. Whether you agree with it or not, at that particular moment, we have to be one. Otherwise, things will not move, isn't it? So, and one important thing is that we need to be together. okay, throughout the year. Not only then is see someone pitching up when the COP is about to come, you hear about the COP and then you come to our department. Can I please be accredited to be part of the delegation? That will not work, isn't it? We also need to see your articles, your stories on climate change, your analysis, and your publications coming out throughout the rest of the year. And then we know that this is someone who knows the subject matter. Then one big challenge that we have is the challenge of funding. I think we all know that government is a bit constrained in terms of funding, especially issues that are related to that need foreign currency for you to participate somewhere outside the country. So you find out that prioritization is normally given to the negotiators to go and negotiate. But even for the negotiators, normally the funding is not enough. So you find that usually there's only one and sometimes zero media person who's actually taken on board to go to COP. But sometimes you need to then have funding from elsewhere, from other organizations that are prepared to fund you to go. Because the challenge is that when the negotiators themselves do not have funding, then what are you going to report on when your own negotiators are not on the table? Then it becomes tricky. It all comes down to the issue of the funding constraint that the government has. So after expressing your interest to our permanent secretary, normally we want you to do it as your organization, not you as an individual. Of course, within the letter is written so and so, we requested them to attend COP, but then the letter has to come from your organization, isn't it? So that we know that this is institutional. We are not dealing with an individual who, because once you're part of the delegation, you have to be held accountable. And usually it's easier to hold someone accountable who is part of a larger organization, which is written and dedicated that this person can abide to the rules and conduct of the government of Zimbabwe. Since this is a meeting of governments, so you will then be given the privilege to join the government delegation and be part of the government delegation. After approval by the head of the ministry, which is the Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry. And sometimes, depending on the COP and its nature, higher level approval above the Permanent Secretary office might also be required. So I think in a nutshell, this is what I have in terms of the ICAP program, which is aimed at capacitating our experts to meet the requirements of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and then also briefly in terms of participating and attending the Conference of Parties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, panelists, for those presentations. So now we move on to the next level of questions. Yes, are you there? Or who can volunteer maybe just to move around with the paper, writing questions. Who have questions? Hapana. Vandeni. But mamam's there. Ngatitangopiga nokudzawo zvamangonzwa in summary. All right, let's start with
You know what? Let's stop. When the mic.
I know it's going to be a question as well from the issue to do with COP26. It's quite interesting. Thank you so much for giving an outline in regards to how to attend to COP26 and also to respond as an interested party that you can't. There is some challenges, of course, and also issues to do with COVID and reduction of number of those who are attending. But I also want to say, from the ministry's point of view, it seems there was no an initiative in trying to bring the media on board in two things, being that to learn as well as to participate in Glasgow. Because it is my understanding, for example, last COP25, Ruby was there, and she was sharing what she learned from the previous COP25. But it was a request that some of the media practitioners even have that include practitioners from the private media. And it is not surprising that even on this COP26, you find the president is saying that those who are going to cover, they're coming from the state media. So participation of media, of private media in COP26, it is basically from what you are reading and hearing from other practitioners who be on the ground. So it is my appeal that from the ministry side, kindly advocate for participation of private media individuals, one or two, to also be part and parcel of the team that will be attending to COP26. I thank you. Attending to COP27 was the criticism of the leader. So it is a appeal for COP27. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that contribution. Maybe move on to
Farah. Yes. Thank you very much. Some of the things that I wanted to highlight were said by Ben. But I just need to say that climate change, just like insurance, are technical areas that are very difficult to master, especially for the majority of our journalists. I'm talking as a leader now. So I was just suggesting that there is NASA, there is NASA and IPEC. They are running a program, knowing that the area is difficult, a program that they call Journalism Mentorship Program, to assist journalists so that they grasp well issues in the insurance industry. So I can just suggest and recommend also to the Department of Climate Change to do the same, to introduce a mentorship program for journalists, so that you can actually try to investigate how they do it and also try to copy, but don't copy notes by notes. But anyway, you can just do that. I think that will help our journalists very well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the contribution. Anyone else with a question? Okay.
Thank you very much. I think mine is just a clarion call. Having convened here, gathered here, we have yet a number of topical issues, emerging issues. Most probably, we now need to look at what's the next step with regards to where we are going. Obviously, we must have a roadmap with regard to issues to do with media and climate change. My thinking around that issue, what is it that we need to do from now onward, going into the future, as media, as journalists? What is it that we really need to understand now? Is it the need of some kind of financing mechanism to ensure that we come up with a reporting on climate change that is sustainable, to enhance climate tracking And probably around that period, around that time, our camp will be intact. We'll be in a position to have the capacity to attend those high-level international forums, the likes of COP26. Probably we cannot attend COP26 without having the adequate knowledge. So I'm just suggesting that we have to come up with a roadmap which enhances almost everything that has been discussed here going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Buamunde, for that question. Anyone still with the burning question?
Memory is full.
Other remarks from anyone to analyst.
Maybe I'll start. I think that these are very valid points coming from colleagues in here. The issue of a mentorship program. I think that's an idea that I think is should actually take up to win as a fellow climate change officer. And I think it will help and go a lot. Just to get a couple of journalists to move with them for quite some time until they get to understand the agenda. And then Mr. Kwame also touched on climate checking. Us as the climate change department, like we're looking at the science and the reporting that we need to do to the United Nations, we track climate issues, mainly the greenhouse gas emissions, and what we are doing as a government to try and contribute to the whole solving of the problem globally. And I think it's critical that the journalistic fraternity also comes in and also tracks. We have an NDC. We have said 40% by the year 2030. To hear someone coming through a year from now, 2 years from now, you said that in the West sector you're going to reduce by 3.5%. Where are we? You said that EMA was going to do 1, 2, 3 managed landfills in Harare and Bulawayo in order to reduce methane emissions. Where are we? And report on that and keep us on our toes. I think that is important for you to check us on and also ensure that we actually do what we are supposed to be doing. I think it's critical and very important. And then on the issue of bringing everyone on board, we try by as much as we can, but I can tell you that we received the request to go to COP this year, formally written ones. We only received 2 from journalists. But COP has been talked about for since the beginning of the year, this COP26, since when the British said that they intended to host it physically. So, but we didn't receive any expressions of interest. We just received from 2 colleagues from the media sector. So it's important for you colleagues to also then write to the ministry. We have heard about COP. I'm interested in COP. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is the list of my publications. I would also want to be part of the delegation, and then the consideration can start from there, and we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Maybe any other points from our panelists?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contributions, your suggestions, and all. We are taking note of those suggestions and comments. Thank you. In terms of if you feel that you have an area that you maybe need your capacity to be built, get in touch. We have an open door policy. Just even for this media training, media engagement, it was a request from some of you media practitioners. So if you have an area that you feel, this area, we lack this area, we need our capacity to review it, get in touch, our office is open. Then in terms of those platforms you were talking about, Mateo, I think it's okay. Thank you very much for the information. We're going to take some notes and learn from that and maybe try to improve our systems. Then in terms of COP, I'm sure Mr. Mwati told you how to go about it, and I think it's clear for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mutasa. I think there was someone raising his hand. Hello?
Okay, for you to say, what are you doing in terms of capacitating my councils in dealing with the waste management?
Okay, let me hand over the mic to my deputy director.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I think with regards to local authorities, you must have picked up from the discussions yesterday in terms of how they contribute to emissions in the waste sector and the potential of mitigation waste to energy. So from last year, I think we've had almost 3-4 series of workshops for local authorities. The first one was in Mashingo, where we invited local authorities just to raise awareness so that they start understanding how they are contributing to the problem. Then we invited them again in Bulawayo, where now, interestingly, at the Bulawayo meeting, we just provided conferencing, and the numbers actually grew bigger. They had to find themselves to come and learn and appreciate some of the things. Then mid this year, we had a renewable energy green tourism conference again in Bifos, where on that, at the invitation of the local authorities, they wanted to focus now on engineered landfills and everything. So they came again. So I think in terms of the appreciation, and at this last meeting, the number was even bigger than previous 2 engagements. So I think we are working with them. We have focal persons within the local authorities that we talk to, and we also brought on board the Urban Councils Association of Zimbabwe, UCAS, so that they also assist in terms of bringing them together. And we have seen some movement actually in terms of the initiatives that look at waste management. Actually, at the moment, we are also in discussion with before municipalities, where they are coming up with an engineered landfill, trying to capture methane and improve even waste management recycling initiatives. So that's the direction we are moving in. And I know the next question will be, in our host city, what are we doing about it? I know Harare has it generates much of the waste that we have, and I think it's a process that is underway. I think we are making progress in terms of capacitating them. We actually got a partner, Eclay Africa, which is looking at local governance and sustainability. And that organization is actually in the process of setting up a climate change desk at City of Harare. Then there's a program that has been designed to ensure that we capacitate also all the officials at the City of Harare. It just doesn't have to be the department responsible for waste management, but even the one in finance has to know about this. The one in logistics has to know about it, because once they don't understand the shortcomings in their line of duty and how it will impact on the environment, then they will not easily be on board. They won't play ball. So I think that's where we are, and it's ongoing as well. We hope to continue having now that we have given them the information, they understand. Then we expect them to see now some integration of what we are recommending as best practices being now incorporated in their work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is why I'm asking that question, is because my fights are doing another game of waste management. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I know what I mean, because at times also EMA is a regulator, and they have certain expectations, certain standards that local authorities have to comply with. Then also, if you go to the local authorities, their failure to comply at times is issue of resources. Maybe ratepayers are not paying. So I think it will need interventions beyond EMA and local authority itself, but also once people can appreciate the needs or the importance for paying for the services that are given by the local authority. Because once you pay, you make your payments, your rates are paid up, and yeah, let's just start by paying up before you're going into now, is what you are paying sufficient to deliver that service? I think once we start paying, then I think all this will actually fall into place. Because now the local authority will have some bit of resources to do what they're supposed to do. Then EMA will be satisfied along the same lines.
Thank you, David. Do we still have any more questions or contributions? I see someone raising Kuamunde.
Okay, probably I might need a further clarification with regards to the aspect to do with accreditation of journalists who will be attending COP26. Probably specifically directing the question to Mr. Mowati. So how about if I'm to visit the UNFCCC portal where I can just make an online application for accreditation, then I find an external funder or a donor, is that not enough? Or if I also opt to be accredited with another organization, probably which is not the government, is that not enough again? Just for the sake of clarification, those who are not adequate in terms of knowledge with regards to that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It's a very important one, especially for colleagues who are not state aligned, in their organizations that are not state aligned. You can actually journalists in the proper UN FCCC accreditation process, they are not supposed to be accredited by the government. We do it as the government of Zimbabwe, but sometimes we need our accredited colleagues from the media to also be able to see what happens within the meetings that go on, all the meetings that go on, so that they have an appreciation of the negotiations. But in the NFCC recommends that journalists are actually accredited via another channel as media personnel. So it's quite possible for you to get that accreditation via the NFCC portal, and you get accredited as a media organization. And you can get your funding either from your organization or from donor funding. It's fine, you can do that and you can attend the COP. The only difference that is someone who's accredited by the government will be able to attend many more meetings than you, because you won't have a party badge. You just have your media badge, which is more or less similar to an observer badge. Okay, so there are certain meetings that you cannot attend that can be attended by others who are accredited by the government. But otherwise, you can do that and you can attend the COP without any challenge.
Thank you so much for the clarity. I think we've come to the end of this session. Let's get ready for analysis.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for facilitating this session. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for this session. Thank you very much to our panelists. This was one of the best sessions. Came out well. Maybe without